Hi, everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Office Hours. I apologize for the audio accoutrement. Our little earpiece malfunction, and so I have to wear these so I can hear what's going out and hear all the cues. So thank you for your patience. Today we have a great office hour set up for you. So let's get to it. We're going to talk about the importance of information in your presentation, your job interview, and how you have to be able to summon that, and why so many executives and so many managers over the years just walk away from two or three really excellent home run issues because they don't remember information. And so this is really important for you today to understand how this can make a meaningful difference in a job interview and how it may help you win that dream job. I've seen it. I've interviewed over 9,000 people in my career, and I have seen people over and over. You'd give them a softball question, and you would hope they'd say, well, in my previous experience, I did this, this, and this in these organizations. And instead you ask them, well, what was your revenue from your, this position? He said, oh, that was 5 years ago. I don't remember. I don't remember is the dumbest thing you can say in a job interview. Well, it's not the dumbest, but it's close. So let's get busy and talk about our presentation today. These are hush-hush topics we like to avoid. And let me tell you, it's not just in job interviews. Organizations have an aversion to talking about these things. The Gallup survey is out on the employee engagement, and it has dropped to the lowest level it's been in more than a decade. Now, it's gone from 33% down to 30%, and it's just the numbers are terrible, and they just keep happening. Now, part of this is we're dealing with some new generational issues, but we're also dealing with some new generational assets. And although millennials and Gen Zs have a certain unique view toward work, they also have a real desire to want to have meaningful engagement, meaningful activity at work. They want to know that what they're doing is appreciated and that it's going to deliver some good. Now, some of us from the old school, we went to work because we loved it and because we wanted to really make our mark on the world, and we wanted to, really elevate our reputation. Now, work is something that a lot of the generational people, younger generations do. That's what they do when they're not out doing what they really want to do, which is spend time with their friends. So we have to learn how to leverage these issues, leverage their desires. We're not ever going to all be on the same page, but 30% as an employee engagement number is terrible. The other issue that we tend to want to not talk about is retention and turnover. So let's go back and pick up just a second. I want to make this point that I think is really important. If you are paying an employee group 100% and you're getting 30%, you're paying for a lot of capacity that you're not receiving value for. And low engagement reflects issues with recruiting, and it will probably suggest that you're going to have issues with retention. So these are all things that really, really have an impact on you. They impact service. They impact your ability to deliver service. You go into a restaurant, there are 20 empty tables, but there's a 45-minute wait because they don't have enough waiters. Why don't they have enough waiters? Because that's not a job that a lot of people want right now. Why? Because restaurants are clinging to this business model of a low hourly rate, but heavy on commission, on tips. Well, the tipping process with a $2.75 or $3 an hour hourly rate, and then you get the rest of it on tips, you're just asking people to cheat on their taxes. So, this is that. We've got to relook at these business models. But these issues of people not being satisfied, not wanting certain jobs, not creating an environment where they can have fun and get the work done and engage with people, these are all things that hurt businesses. And these issues related to engagement, they also fuel expensive turnover, which nobody wants to talk about in the boardroom. Nobody wants to talk about it in management reports. And I don't, you can ask people in job interviews, what's your turnover rate? I don't remember. Either they don't remember because it was really bad and they don't want to remember, or they just didn't keep their success. They didn't document their success. So if you have a chance like that to really hit a home run in a job interview, you want to be prepared. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. The other thing that these issues do is they erode profit margins. When you don't have an engaged workforce, you're going to have more mistakes. You're going to have turnover, and those things drop to the bottom line like crazy. We looked at a hospital with a high OR turnover, and realized that was costing them with loss of capacity, having to schedule and delay cases, infuriating some doctors, and also having to hire travelers, which were double the expense. All in, they spent $800,000 just because they had turnover, and so that's just nuts. Why are we not talking about this in terms of something you need to be accountable for? I don't really know. I will say this, that the employee engagement, employee turnover, these are huge leadership brand differentiators. So if you come in and you're well prepared, and by listening to the questions that the screening interviewers are asking, and based on the questions you're asking the interviewers, the prospective employers, that you understand these are issues that you can address. Sometimes they're not going to tell you. You have to weed this out. You have to tease out the information. What's the turnover rate in this department? What's the turnover rate in the organization? What's the employee satisfaction scores? Oh, we don't know. Well, let's talk about the national scores. You're probably like the national scores, and so you're leaving 70% on the table. These are all things that if you can show in a dynamic, meaningful way that you really excelled in these areas, then you lift yourself up over everybody else. Because I guarantee you, if they have 20 people that they're talking to, 19 of them, maybe 18, won't have a clue and won't address these issues directly. So that's just something that I think we just leave this on the table all the time. Now, here's a common interview failure. A significant number of executives and managerial job applicants, they fail to use quantifiable information to strengthen their value statements. Now, we've all learned how to make our value brand statement, and that's good. And sometimes at the start, tell us about yourself. You don't want to get into a lot of data. But later, as you go through the day and as you share additional information, you want to be able to share data and strengthen your points that you're making. Now, you want to do it in a story kind of format. You want to be sharing this in a way that's interesting and draw the interviewer in. But if you can wrap that with some really hardcore facts, well, that is a great combination. So why do we walk away from these issues? I mean, really, why do we do this? Well, why do applicants fail to use quantifiable accomplishments? It's actually, you sit there and you think, well, why? It's really easy. They forgot. Many executives admit they do not recall specific information from previous employers. It happens all the time. If I did an executive interviews series on a CEO search, and we were talking about a $500,000 or $600,000 comp package, base pay, plus 30 or 40% commission, 30 or 40% incentive, my sales mentality is coming out of me. I mean, you'd think that they'd be crackerjack cracking on with all this good information, but they don't. And what I'm telling you is, this is a door that they are leaving open for you, and if you don't take advantage of it, shame on you. This is not hard stuff, and yet it happens all the time. People don't remember information. They talk in generalities. Okay, everything from revenue, headcount, satisfaction scores to employee turnover. And if you're in healthcare, Physician satisfaction scores are really, really important because that's a real turbulent segment of the market. Physicians are really struggling. A lot of them are not happy with what's going on in the industry. They've sold out to hospitals and they're not enjoying, a lot of them are not enjoying that relationship. They miss having more control over how they treat their patients. They're frustrated with insurance companies. And so if you can say, I took physician satisfaction scores from 15 to 50, that is something that'll make somebody stand up and pay attention. Okay? They're going to shut the front door. Let's talk about this some more. So, satisfaction scores, turnover. Turnover is a huge expense that people don't want to talk about. If you have worked on turnover, if you've made that one of your key elements of who you are as an executive, and you've always strived to reduce that number, that's something you can beat your chest on that other people probably will not ever mention in a job interview. So here's a hard career truth, okay? Most people out there, we're not talking about people who are not smart, who are not well educated, and who are not accomplished. Most of the people I've interviewed have accomplished a lot, okay? And most executives will tell you, they tell themselves, but they tell me later when I'm asking about it, that they thought they would remember this or that success. Guess what? Most don't even remember the event, much less the numbers. Okay? It's awful. And this is something that you can take control of, and it can make a difference in your career. If you're in on your last or second to the last job, you still need to do this. This is not an option. You need to be doing this. You need to be able to go back and recreate. If you have to go back and recreate, look at old records, look at old information from your previous jobs. Try to get a handle on this, because this gives you 2 or 3 issues you can talk about that most other people are not going to be talking about. So what's the answer? Quit screwing around and start journaling. Now, I once had an executive in Southeast Texas said, "Oh, no, I'm not going to journal, because if I ever get sued, they're going to want to see my journals." Well, they will if they know you have them. But I don't know many executives that tell defense lawyers, "Oh, by the way, you want to see my journals?" And for the most part, the information you write in there is more self-reflective and is probably not going to be that much use in a case, assuming that anybody even knew to ask for them. Okay? And because those, as a general rule, are your personal property. They're not records, they're part of the hospital records process. Buy a journal and use it, okay? Quit screwing around. And we're going to talk now about, okay, how do you use this journal? Well, it's important that you set it up and that you cover the right categories, that you include the right categories in your journaling, okay? First of all, let's say when you take a job, put the job title down, date of hire, or if it's a promotion, date of promotion. What was your salary? Okay, who are you reporting to? I have people who can't even remember who they were reporting to. Either they can't remember or they don't want to tell me. And that's a bad sign. Who were you reporting to? What was your scope of responsibility? How will success be defined in this job? What are your priorities going to be? How many people are going to be reporting to you directly? And then how many employees will be in your scope of responsibility, department, division, or company? Then what were the revenues and the expenses of this department, division, or company? Okay. What were your initial observations about the organization? What was your assessment of the team? What is your read about the team? Okay. And then if you see certain opportunities for improvement, what are your developmental goals for your team members and for yourself? What concerns do you have? This is another issue, okay? Significant achievements. As you start your job and you go through and you start achieving all these things, make notes. If you start reversing the turnover rate, start documenting that, keeping the numbers, stay in touch with HR. If they've been clipping along at 17 to 25% turnover, in your first 4 or 5 months, you drop it to 5%. That's great. Just keep track of that so that you can use it in your future job expansion, your future job growth. Keep track of your satisfaction scores. Talk to your employees. Find out what they are frustrated with and how you can help them grow, how you can get them the resources they need to be successful, being a good leader. Okay. So track your satisfaction, both as your physicians, your employees, if you're in manufacturing, your customers. Really important. Track all that information. Turnover rate is so important, especially in today's environment. This is really significant, and I really encourage you to start keeping this information. Now, there's some other benefits to keeping a journal. One is reflective thinking. Several years ago, I attended at SMU a morning presentation by a really interesting man by the name of Rand Stajan, former SMU graduate, runs an institute in Dallas for leadership development. I know several people who participated in his programs and really like it. They build a really strong community, and the people who attend these workshops stay in touch with one another. Okay. This can be a strong tool for improvement. I've been journaling for a long, long time. And I find that it's really helpful for me to list my thoughts, and I have my business stuff, and then I have my personal things. And, because I'm a self-employed person, I put it all pretty much in the same bailiwick. But Stajan argues that this can be one of the most beneficial things that you do. In fact, some of the great CEOs of our time, some that have passed on, some that are still with us, have used journaling, and they all say it is a valuable tool for them to improve. Okay, let's talk about improvement. How can a journal possibly help you become a better leader? Okay, Itzhak Perlman, a virtuoso violinist, Joshua Bell, another great violinist, Niccolo Benedetti, another phenomenal violinist. If they're giving concerts, they practice. They rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. They work on form. They work on technique. They work on the sound they want to deliver. They work to be sure that they're getting all the notes and that their pacing is good. They do it over and over. Golfers go to the driving range and practice putting. They practice chipping. They practice hitting mid irons and long irons and drivers. To get your game better in golf, you have to work at it. You have to practice. So, what practice do executives have to help them grow as a leader? And part of that is you reflectively think on the issues of the day. I had a big make or break meeting on a major project that my boss was really interested in. I had these people there. This is how I framed the meeting. This is how I set it up. This was my expectation. Did I have the right people there? Did I lead the way? Did I lead the meeting in a way that encouraged or empowered people to contribute and to speak freely and to feel comfortable in that environment? This is so important. And we think we do that, but we don't. And the reason we don't is because we don't stop and think about what we've just done. So keeping a journal is a way to think about what you've done, reflectively think about how you make decisions, the process, your style. Are you doing all the things you need to be doing to be sure that your boss or your board, whoever you're reporting to, is satisfied that you're ticking all the boxes that you were supposed to tick with the job? Sometimes people come and they so used to doing a job a certain way that even though they heard everything in the job interviews of, I need to be doing this, 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 and this, they come in and start doing what they've always done because that's what they're comfortable doing. And that's why they don't survive. So this is a critical discipline for your success. Always review your performance. Let's put it in a different framework. In the game of football, which I'm not a great fan, I'm a baseball person, but in the game of football, the head football coach, and especially in pro, there's always a camera on the coach on the sideline. There's one camera in the stands, is a general rule, that's focused on the coach or the sideline. He's got a headset on. Everybody's looking to him to win the game, but he's got the worst seat in the house. Football field's kind of ovaled up, and so he's standing on the sideline. He cannot see clearly across the field. He can't necessarily see whether the running right tackle held, whether the right tackle missed the block. He can't see that. especially if he's on the left side of the field. So he has to rely on people in the press box. They may be junior to him. They may not have as much experience as he does as a coach, but they are specialists in linebackers and defensive line and offensive line. The quarterback coach, maybe the offensive coordinators there, maybe the defensive coordinators in the box. They sometimes are in the box or sometimes they're on the sideline. But if they're on the sideline, they're talking to one of their coaches in the box. Why? Because the guy in the box, the guys in the press box can look down and they have a different perspective. They can see what's happening from above that the head coach and the coaches on the bench can't see. And above them, they're photographers recording the game. And the coaches will all be reviewing this game film after the game is over to see who performed according to the game plan, who missed blocks, who needs help on technique, who needs help with maybe double teaming with a bigger player. So there are all these things they can pick up from watching the game film because they are looking at it from a different perspective. So keep a journal. You don't necessarily have to journal every day, but every day there's something significant. Now, I do journal every day, and I start with the 3 things I'm most grateful for, and I find that sets a positive tone. And if you're in a job search, that's something you really ought to consider doing because it'll help you set the day. It'll help lift your spirits, and if you get disappointed, it'll help you balance the down, okay? And that's really, really important because you can't afford to lose another opportunity because you were fretting and upset over the one you lost last week. So on a Saturday morning or a Sunday night or whenever you have some time by yourself, sit down and go through your journal and think about the week's activities. And think about what you did. And think about how you could have, based on what you've written, your observations you've made, what could you have done better? Replay your game film in your mind. And that will help you become a better leader, and that will help you become more self-aware. And you, as a candidate, you think about your performance in the interview. It's important to when you finish an interview, write down the questions you were asked so that you have a running list of all the questions you've been asked. There's only so many questions that can be asked in a job interview. So you want to keep up with all that information. But more importantly, you want to think about these questions. And you want to force yourself to revisit those questions. You look at the ones you've written down and say, did I answer them the right way? Did I give my very best answer? Did I really stress my value? Did they understand that I've had experience solving this problem and that I gave them examples with quantifiable achievements? If you've made notes about all those questions and what you did, that will help you improve your interview performance. It will also help you improve your leadership performance. So this is a really important thing to consider, keeping a journal. It's really important. If you take the categories that I set out for you and you follow those. Now, when I use tabs. I'm a tab kind of guy. And so on my journals, if I change something, if I start doing something differently, I'll tab it and make a note as if I'm changing jobs. Sometimes I do it that way. And so that I know this is a significant transitional event in my company or my profession, my career development. So I can go back and say, this was a starting point for a new approach I was taking. So always keep your journals tabbed so you can go back and say, okay, I've been promoted. So I tab that page and start a new page. What was the salary? Who am I reporting to? How much am I making? What's expected of me? What are the big challenges I'm going to face, etc. Document all that, because if things start going south and your boss calls you in, you can take your journal in and say, well, on this day, we had this conversation and you told me I should focus on these things. So now are you saying that I need to focus on a different set of things? That can help you keep from getting put on a performance improvement plan. Knowing what happened. Most people forget those meetings. They're so excited to get a job, or they're so pumped up about having this new responsibility and taking over a department and being in charge that they don't always hear what their bosses said. And sometimes the bosses forget what they said. So keeping a journal is a really important thing. It's not a gotcha book. That's not the purpose, although it can help you in that regard. It's a book to help you retain information, to collect information that can be used in a job interview. It is used to help you improve your thinking process and improve your leadership process, improve your self awareness. And let me tell you something, and this almost never happens. And then when it does happen, I've had people give me 4 or 5 sheets of unbelievable, just loaded with garbage data that I was never going to be able to have the time to read it, and probably wouldn't be that meaningful for me anyway. And instead of putting it down in a meaningful format that would have impact, they just do a data dump on me. Don't do that. If you know that the employer has 5 or 6 key issues for this job, and you probably can conclude that based on reading the job summary, although some of them are pretty weak. A lot of the ones from the recruiters, and based on your information that you're collecting when you ask questions in interviews and interactions, you can find out, okay, this is really important. And in this case, what I demonstrated here is I made a graph. One was satisfaction and how the performance improved substantially. The other was customer satisfaction, how the performance elevated significantly. And then in turnover, how it decreased. Now, you want to be able to have the data to build the graph. But if you can just don't hand a bound book of stuff that you expect them to go through to hire you because you're great, read this. No, that's not their job. Their job is to be able to make a decision based on the interview. But if you're supporting your case by giving them 2 or 3 of these graphics, or 2 or 3 charts, or 2 or 3 summary pages with dot points about before and after, what happened when you took over the ambulatory care division in terms of access, in terms of scheduled appointments, and all those things, all the metrics that happen in manufacturing, in retail sales, they all have a plethora of metrics, and you discern which are the metrics, the 4, 5, or 6 metrics that are really important for this job. If one is they've not been making money and the people that have been in this job have consistently failed, and you have consistently improved performance and improved your operating margins, create a chart. Not a big chart, you're not one that, you need a drink and a magnifying glass to, decipher. But a chart that makes an instant impact to say, I'm going to leave this with you. I was very successful in addressing key 3 issues we've talked about today: satisfaction, customer satisfaction, employee. And you can make it over 3 or 4 jobs. And that's sometimes very impressive. These are 4 different jobs I've had in the last 6 years. And I can show in each job, you can see where I've made substantial improvements in performance on these key indicators, the ones that are really important to you. The graphic it's like wrapping data in a story. It can be so helpful. Again, don't give them a bound GBC binder with reports and all this other stuff, because they don't have time to read it. And you're basically, that's very off-putting. And I've just said, no, I've got my briefcase is pretty jammed. You get that. If I need more information, I'll call you. If they'd have given me 2 or 3 pages that I could easily see what they were talking about, and that would help me in presenting them to the client, if it was helpful information that I could use to present in their case, then great. But if I have to spend 4 or 5 hours going through this big report they gave me to show their career, their memoir of data, no, I'm not going to do that, and most recruiters won't either. So make it easy. Be a helpful recruiter. How do you do this? You can't do it unless you have a history of your data. And you can't have a history of your data unless you're keeping a journal. Okay, you can call it a diary, you can call it a log, you can call it your whatever, okay? But you need to be able to have access to data, because a chart without specific data lacks credibility. And, when you do something like this that doesn't have credibility, and you can't talk about the specific numbers, you will not look good. So having specific numbers and avoiding having to say, I don't remember, is a real benefit of keeping a journal. So I think what you have to look at this is, I'm qualified, I'm smart, I've been good at what I've done, but I need to be able to channel all that into a focused story that addresses their needs. And in order to do that, I need to have quantifiable achievements, and they are critical to elevating your credibility in that context. Second, they strengthen your story. Having this information strengthens your story. It enhances the emotional connection with the interview, especially if you're able to tell a story and infuse the data into that story. And three, what I call the plus factor, it boosts your confidence, which increases your self-awareness loop. It all feeds on, it just keeps turning over and feeding and feeding. And that's really, really something that you want to try to achieve in your career is a self-affirming loop of positive information. You've got the data. You don't have to worry about what happened 10 years ago that you might not remember. I guarantee you won't, unless it was just something absolutely phenomenal. I don't remember how many flights Life Flight made on its first month. I think it was 48 or 49. But I remember the second month, which was a foggy February, and it was 38 flights, and which was below our expectations. And so, and somebody would say, no, John, that's not right. And sometimes our memory, we lock in on a number from our memory and we don't go back and look at the details. And that was at a time that I was not keeping a journal. And that was one of the reasons that I started thinking, oh my goodness, my career hopefully is going to be an interesting history and I want to document it. And I didn't always do it like I should have. And so I guess at the end of the day, I'm saying, do as I say, not as I do. But I guarantee you, please believe me, if you start doing this, it will be an incredible blessing for your career and in your life and in your ability to elevate your performance. So here are the key takeaways today as we come up to the bottom of the hour. Employee engagement, okay? Satisfaction and turnover are potential home run issues. They are not always on the table. Sometimes the employer, they're an issue, but they don't even look at them. And so you can make them an issue by asking questions. Most applicants drop the ball. And again, I'm basing that over 9,000 interviews, over 27 years in global executive search. Because without the supporting data, they ignore the issue. I can't remember, so I'm not going to talk about that. But if I can say in the last, in this period of time, over 4 employers, I did X, Y, and Z, and I addressed this issue, and here's a chart showing what I did on those employers with dates and numbers, wham, man, you are that is a big time hit. Okay? So without the supporting data, people tend to ignore these issues. Don't ignore the issues because you were too lazy to keep the data. Okay? Journals are critical to data retention because you're not going to remember it in your brain. Journaling strengthens leadership presence. Okay? Now, people say, well, John, I use my computer to keep all that information. That's great as long as you've got it backed up and you are absolutely sure you're never going to lose it. Okay? One of the things I want to go back to here just a minute ago, I'm not sure that I may not have included that there. This is the one I wanted to show you. These are journals that I bought. Buy something, first of all, that has good paper and that's easy to write in. Buy something that's easy to hold, not something so tiny that you're squinching up trying to write because that's crazy. Get something that's big. Get something that is nice looking. Now, this was from Office Depot. I think they still carry them. They may not, but you can find something. You want to be sure that you label it, and you want something that's nice enough so that your wife doesn't inadvertently, her husband doesn't inadvertently throw them away. Those binders, those ring things that we used in spiral notebooks we used in high school and college for note taking. Those thousands of those have been thrown out, and some of them had really good information in it. So get something that you enjoy writing in and that you're not going to easily throw away by mistake. Put labeling on the side of it so you know this journal went from this date to this date, okay? And I found that, depending on the job, depending on how much activity I had, I could go through about 2 of those a year. I was a prolific note taker. That's part of a carry forward of my days as an investigative reporter and crime writer. But you want something like this. Moleskine makes a really good product. It's expensive. I've used another one that's a little smaller, and I don't see it right this minute. Hold on a second. I don't see it right now. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Sorry about that. I use this now. It's a little bit smaller. Some people will use these college essay books. I use these for making notes, keeping notes of what I'm doing with clients. And sometimes, and I have one I use for drafting ideas. But these are nondescript and they can be thrown away if you're not careful. So even when you have something like that, those you can buy those at Walmart, I think, for $1. Okay. Now, if you go to Office Depot, they're $5.95, and they're not any better at Office Depot. No disrespect meant. So, but if you're going to use it, be sure you label it. So buy yourself a labeling machine, or make labels on sticky labels from a felt pen or something like that. But do it in a way that you can easily retrieve these labels or easily retrieve these books if you have a job that you're looking for and you start searching for data. Now, some people say, well, I'm going to categorize it and do all this with my computer and I'll be able to have a searchable database. If you can do that, if you have that skill, great. Somebody probably has already come up with a journaling or career log that has a searchable database. I haven't seen it, but if you've seen it, send me some information on it. We'll share it. Okay. So that's one I wanted to share with you. Now, again, here are the categories, and these are really important. And you go back to these categories every time you get a promotion or you start a new job or you change employers and you start over, and then you get one of your little tabs out on the page and say, okay, and you may make a note of the company and the title, so that if you go into that book and you're looking for information from that job, you can get to it easily and you're not going to waste time turning page after page after page. So you want to be sure you understand who you were reporting to. If you can't tell me in an interview who you worked for 7 years ago, I'm not going to be very impressed. And most other recruiters won't be either. So you also need, for your benefit, to understand how success will be defined. Performance priorities, what's important to the employer? What do they say they want to see you do? Because if you hear that and then don't follow up on that, you're asking for a conflict. Okay. And then other information like the number of direct reports, what the budgets were, what the revenues were. This is all stuff. If you reduce spending and increased revenue, that's a very strong before and after comparison. And before and after comparisons are probably the best. Okay, so these are things that I think that you can keep up with. If you want to see copies of these slides, just let me know. I'm happy to share them with you. And when you have something like this, and this is one I made using Canva, I'm not a great experienced person with PowerPoints. With the various graph data collection and spreadsheet formats. But this is easy to do, and they're easy to put together, and they're very flexible, and you can add multiple fields. And so you don't want to get something too fancy. You don't want to spend all your time documenting your job. You want to be able to document it and then be able to quickly put together presentation materials that will be effective. And if their colors are blue and gray, use blue and gray because that has a subconscious attachment. They're going to connect with that. So there you go. Okay, so and again, it enhances your values and it boosts your confidence, which increases your own self-awareness. So let's get back over here. I want to invite you to join us tomorrow morning for Career Live at 7:30 a.m. We're going to be talking about what's going on with with some of the employment issues. We're talking greater detail about the latest Gallup survey. We're talking about the generational issues between Gen Zs and millennials and what they want and what they don't want. And then we talk about maybe here are some things you can do to take advantage of that. Every generation is different. And my generation looks down at that and says, oh, those people don't have a freaking clue how life works. Well, you know what? That's what our parents and grandparents said about the baby boomers. Holy cow, don't they know running around with holy T-shirts and tie-dyed t-shirts and holy blue jeans is not a way to get ahead in life. You know that well, that's what the boomers brought. We bought tie-dye, mudslides, and acid rock. So every generation has its quirks. Every generation has its strengths and weaknesses. And so what you want to do as a leader is learn how to understand what the generational issues are. You're not going to change them. That's baked into their DNA. That's set. What you have to learn how to do is how do you, as a leader, motivate them, engage them, leverage what they think is important to help you and help them grow. That's the secret. And people, and it's not about changing and making them conform. That is a fool's errand. Okay, Friday. This is Thursday. Friday at 11 a.m. Your career questions will be available. So Career Live is 7:30 in the morning. Your career questions are 11 a.m. on Friday, and so we hope you'll join us. And then we also want to reinforce that if you would like a more intense set of coaching sessions, you can sign up for our career boot camp. It's a job search career boot camp. It starts at 9 a.m. on Saturday, April 27th. The leadoff speaker is Ron Thomas from Dubai, who's a former CHRO who's had an incredible career, and he's going to share his story with you. And he will give you some guidance if you have interest in working overseas. Things are really getting tight in the marketplace, and there are just a lot of really big issues. And so I really encourage you to, really master and elevate your career and really elevate your career management techniques and skills. Finally, I want to add something. Today, we published our latest newsletter, and it focuses on how much we're spending as a country and where our weaknesses are and how this could affect the economy and how, if certain things happen, we could have a real mess. Now, Mark Cuban and there's several other people besides Mark Cuban are estimating that AI is going to displace a lot of people, that they're not business owners and analysts are not saying that, giving you the true number, because it's not in their interest to do that. And so what are we going to do to be able to absorb 5 or 10 million people whose jobs have just been eliminated? I mean, it's not that they can go find a job someplace else. Most companies will not have people like data entry clerks and, basic level EA people. So you have to figure out, what can I do next? We talk a little bit about the scenarios leading up to that, and we'll have some other newsletter activity. My newsletter is on Substack. It's John G. Self at Substack, and it's guiding your career. So I hope you'll check that out. And we also had a little comment or two about Caitlin Clark and her incredible salary. She broke every record in NCAA basketball, and they were paying her $76,000 a year. Check that out. I hope that's you find that interesting. Okay. Again, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. And look forward to having you join us then. And we also look forward to you joining us for question time on Fridays at 11 a.m., where we just take questions from whatever people are sending in. And a lot of people prefer to send them in on info in advance of the show. That's fine. If you want to submit a question, if you hear something and want a question, you can drop it in the question dialogue chat box. And we won't use your name, your full name, or we'll just maybe say Brenda from Portland or something like that. We won't violate your confidence, but we hope you'll join us, because a lot of times we deal with issues there and questions that might not come up in a group coaching session. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you at 7:30 in the morning. And I can't think of anything else that we need to talk about this afternoon. It's been 45 minutes, so let's say goodbye, and I'll see you in the morning.